Hey everyone, welcome back. This is the Mighty Borlog, and we are back in Staxel. There's been another recent update that has changed some aspects of the game, just a little bit of a tightening up of elements. And today I thought, since the dev team are busting tail to work real hard on getting the game into its next phase, I would just go and talk a little bit more about the mods that I've created. Now, as you can see here, I've got the mods from last time. These are just my little rail planter box pieces that are here effectively just holding the ground up and just giving something visually different than planting out on the ground here. It's kind of neat, and my path pieces are coming along just fine. I need to do a little more work on them. And I've picked up a secondary project that I hope to be showing off here at some point in time, but for the moment, I wanted to talk about two different kinds of mod that happen to exist. The first kind of mod is the one that you've already seen, these planter box pieces. When it comes to modding for Staxel, of course, you're building stuff to be placeable within the world. So the first thing you have to realize is everything around you is a 16 cubed world coordinate grid system. And we call them tiles. Each tile has 16 cubed sub-voxels, which is all the individual little pieces of color that you see here in the ground, on the plans, and so forth. So knowing that, it's tempting to think that everything you're going to build for Staxel as pertains to mods is going to be little blocks that are put together and they become bigger blocks. Well, that's not entirely the case. As far as I can tell, and I'm willing to be wrong on this, there really are only two kinds of things you could ever mod for Staxel in general, and that would be micro and macro builds. So, to flesh the idea out, you have the 16 sub-voxel grid system. Well, if you just extrapolate that out, it should be possible for you to make bigger objects. Of course, you take a look at things like this chair that the cat found one morning. Your cat, if you feed him well and keep him happy, he will locate things and bring them back to the house. And in the case of of this particular one, he brought me back an honest to goodness love seat, which is just real spiffy. But as you can tell, that's not a 16 by 16 cube object. It's actually fairly big. So if we know that much, and we know that we made this work by sticking to the grid system, well, what happens if we build something bigger? And what I'm going to show you today, after I'm done doing my chores and pontificating, is what I mean when I say that. As a little bit of a background, the piece that I'll be showing off today is a building that was modeled after a Christmas village building. These are still kind of a thing. You can go and see them in Kmart and other styles of stores where you have these villages made up of buildings that are dressed to the nines for Christmas. And I've always thought they've been very special, but they're also really dang expensive. And as much as I like them, and as much fun as it would be to put one in, it never managed to find room in my life for it. So getting a chance to do stuff like that in Staxel I thought would be a really neat exercise in, okay, what can we do with this game? And so I thought to myself, well, let's try and build something that we've already seen, or something that already exists, especially if it existed and no longer does. Well, there's this there used to be this little company called California Creations. They went out of business, I want to say, something like 2007, perhaps, maybe a little earlier. You can still find some of the buildings up for sale on Etsy because they would crank these things out at their business, and then they would be distributed to craft places, and you would buy them. And they are all plaster of Paris molds that you would then hand paint and turn into something really nice. So I looked for one that was relatively simple, didn't have too much extra geometry, and what caught my fancy was this really great little dress shop. And I floated the idea to Bartwee, who was very kind to pony up some resources to help us have a little server where we could build a Christmas village. And I designed some plots, got the thing underway, and already some folks from the Insanity family, which is another group of YouTube Let's Players, came over and did a video about the building that they built on that particular server, so please feel free to go over and take a look at that. But given that I was headlining this thing and headlining it as a content modder for Staxel, I knew the pressure was on me to try and get something nice, especially since Bart was willing to throw down with the help, because I don't know if we can do dedicated servers just yet, but for what it's worth, Bart really came to my aid, and so I said, dang it, I better get something good out. Started work on it, started building it up, and got to a point where I realized, you know what, I don't think I'm intelligent enough to do this, because you think, okay, here's where I'm going to put the building. I've got my space blocked out. All right, how the heck do I do that? It's got to have bricks, it's got to have a roof, it's got to have a lot of other pieces, and all of that work just straight up overwhelmed me. And I had suggested this back in October of 2016, so I had from October to December 24th to have this thing ready. And I knew that mine had better be ready for the event. Well, doing it piece by piece like that just wasn't going to cut it. And so I realized, well, there's an upper limit on how much stuff in Staxel you can put in. So let's take a look at my inventory here. If you notice, I have some big honking pieces of structure in here. And these are what I'm calling macro builds. Macro builds are just anything that's going to be bigger than a, let's say, a 2x2. Excuse me, would that be 4x4? No, 2x2. A 2x2 cubed tile object. That would be like a chair or a bed. A bed wouldn't be a macro object. The beds have to be a certain size, yes, but they're not supposed to be as big as some of these are going to get, one of which, this one particularly here, I think is 5x5 on a side. Breaking the building up into pieces like this is how I kept myself sane working on it. And I'll just go ahead and start grabbing these pieces up and start putting them in, and you will very quickly see what it is that I basically got myself into. So it would have been the end of November when I hatched on this brilliant plan, and check this sucker out. This is just a very, very big boy. And this is the butt end of the building, so if this building were in the Christmas Village, this would be butted up against another building that would be over here. It looks like it belonged on a street corner, so that's the plot that I picked for myself. And of course, this is 5 on a side. This one here, I believe, this one is a 3. So slap that down. And of course, I had to make sure that where they meet here agreed with each other as far as the bricks were concerned, and that looks okay. Feeling pretty spiffy about that even all this time later. But you see, I have 5 and 3 and 3, so that's 11 blocks, and we're still not even really done here. So let's go ahead and put this other side over here. And then there's this one. That's the front door. I'm going to hold on that for just a moment. These pieces here are additional components that would go along the side and bring us up to the front door, including another side door, which, as I recall, this guy here. He's supposed to go on this side. Perfect. That mates up nicely on that side. Continues the pattern over here. As you can see, there were some different colored bricks that I neglected to put into here. Unfortunately, I finished this entire project the week of Christmas. And to say that I bit off more than I can chew is really to leave a lot of the story out, let me tell you. All right. I'm going to put this in here. Okay, good. That agrees with it. And that's the corner piece. Because, of course, I hadn't quite thought this through. I didn't divide up the resources correctly. So I've got the corners as part of one of these facades. If I had another crack at it, I'd definitely divide the work up better because of the lessons I learned on this one. We'll put the sucker in here. And as you can see, everything just mates up just real nice. I got extremely lucky with it. And then there's this bozo. I don't know if I have to really explain how unpleasant it is to design on a 45-degree angle, but if I ever crack a video out like that, y'all can share the fun with me, because I swear, nothing I did on this looked right. I eventually just had to hold my breath, pinch my nose, and let it go. It doesn't look bad, but it really doesn't look good either. Now the next piece of this is the second floor. And of course those are all in pieces as well, but before I get any further, let's make sure I have something to stand on. I will unfortunately need to go up a bit. Building skills finally honed in Minecraft. Heck, everybody's done this. And I can, of course, stand on some of this as I go around. But already you can see the value of putting objects into this macro build mode. The repeating patterns of the bricks, as you'll see in a video that I intend to put out at some point, Magical Voxel can now do copy and paste of a region. So now you don't have to kill yourself making all these brick pieces, but even then that's not all that dang hard. Plus, you don't have to get it right so it tiles. You just have to get it right so it tiles on a side like this where it mates up. And that's a heck of a lot easier than trying to break your back to get the rest of it to work. Let's see, there's the part that goes up on the top. Let's see here, there's the one in the back. I need both of you guys and both of you guys. Let's go ahead and pop up here real quick. So when it comes to building macro objects, there's a couple of considerations you absolutely have to make. With this corner piece, you notice I've got the transform node where it's turning around, spinning, on the very bottom and in that corner. And you'll also notice that is not a 5x5. The reason I got away with it with the one on the bottom is extremely simple, because if you ever do a 5x5 tile object, the transform node in the component argument has to be dead center on the bottom level of that macro piece. And of course I'll demonstrate that when I build the object. Staxel is looking for 3 arguments when it comes to component. They want to know, is it collidable? Is it empty? Or is it where I'm being told the transform node is? And the transform node, as you saw, is just how does the program know when I'm setting the thing down on the ground or building with it? Let's see. I think, unless I'm mistaken, I have to have the herringbones going the other direction this time. Very good. Now, does that agree? Very good. Just kind of goes together like a gigantic jigsaw puzzle, and you've just got to be hip to that as you build and as you make the thing in Magical Voxel, and as you go with it, eventually everything gets together. Now, these 45-degree pieces, what I've got here, not too terrible, not too hard to figure out. This one was a 4x4, which means I didn't have a central place where I could put it like the one on the bottom. So I just picked a corner that made sense, put it down there, and as luck would have it, I can center it right above where it's supposed to go. Again, not my happiest thing to build anything on a 45-degree incline. And okay, let's just do a little bit of upkeep here. So as you can see, it just, doing it this way means that all it does is it takes time to build something. It takes time for the thing to be done, versus, say, doing it with a bunch of cubes. Doing it with cubes is nice because then you just kind of explore the building process. You kind of explore what you're looking for, and everything just turns out that way. It's 90% of the appeal of building things in Minecraft. You have very simple objects. They all go together in predictable, regular ways, and it's just the player exploring the concept of design with repeatable elements. But with this, more like, shall I say, those really cool Puzz 3D things you can get for Christmas. Like, I remember getting, honest to goodness, scale model of Big Ben, the big honkin' clock they have over there in England that's so famous. Picking up out of my fruit trees. And immediately turning that stuff into seeds, as currently seeds are a fantastic way of making money off of your fruit crops as opposed to selling the fruit outright. I'm sure at some point when they get enough downtime to actually balance the economy of the game, that'll all come out real nice. For the moment, we just grab it off the tree, we turn it into seeds, and we sell it. I really do want to make some time to build a nice little orchard in here and build some modded objects for that as well. Just going to real quick check and make sure that everybody's watered, because of course a single day of not watering is all that's required. And if you look here, I did manage to finally get a golden what's-it as a seed from the seed maker, which I had been told for a long time would eventually give me one, and I finally did get one. I don't know if it would make sense to replace this entire section of crops with golden ones, but I'm strongly tempted. Yes, indeed. Lovely. And I guess the eggplants aren't quite ready yet, but that's certainly fine. Yeah, not a lot of money, as it were, from these things, but I guess Bart was trying to make sure that as soon as you start out, you have enough money if, like me, you have mods and they have a cost. I'm thinking of bringing the cost down, but I still like it to be representative. This building here, unfortunately, costs a lot of dang money. Now, okay, we'll put those in there. Now, if you notice, as these spin, these ones here, they have a very specific end for them. These are my corners for the top front part, as you can see here. Again, if I had this to do over again, better believe I would have done that much more differently. Let's use good grammar. I would have done them different. I would have found a way to make them right and do a halfway decent job of it. But, you know, time was bearing down on me quite a bit. And when that happens, brother, you just hold your breath, wish upon a star, and get her done. Ooh, I've got a little bit of, okay, and that too went away. Okay, might have to report that as a bug. Don't know necessarily that I feel it's a bug, per se. And today I feel like having the herringbone go one way this way. And there it is. There is the second level. Now, as you see, I got quite a few pieces here for the roof. And there is a central piece that I had, but I finished it, as I mentioned, the week of Christmas, and basically said, alright, well, gosh, fellas, it just looks fine as it is, so I'm not going to make sure that it lines up 100% with the rest of the height, because there are arguments in the modding code that you must correctly account for, otherwise it doesn't work. And let's see, first things first, I tend to want to do the corners more than anything else, so let's just go ahead and put those in there. And as you can see with this one, quite a bit easier, because of course I just needed to sit on the corner. So getting that transform location correct for the model was really easy. I think I want to do this one next. Look at that. I also like how the tiles up here came out for the, or not tiles, excuse me, the roofing. I don't think they're called tiles when they're shaped like this. They do that a lot in England, I believe. And they'll make them out of slate, and they're just lovely as hell. In fact, the quarries where those guys had been digging them out for hundreds of frickin' years in England, they finally shut a lot of them down because most of those places where they get the shale for roofing shingles, uh, they'll crack the things down and they'll find boatloads of fossils in them, and so of course not much incentive to destroy that stuff. Pup. This one I remember being a real butt. Let's see if I can get you to sit correctly. Alright, that should be enough for you. Get this one next here, get this one over here. And that is absolutely it. So of course there was a middle piece that sat here, but it kind of sunk in, and I'm just like, as long as nobody can climb up here and fall into it, I don't really care. And the other thing that I really enjoy about this game, I don't have to go clean all that up. I can just cut the part that's connected to the ground, and we're just done. Excellent foresight on the part of the devs for giving us that ability, and just look at what we have here. Now, admittedly, I could have done a lot better on this. This could have turned out a lot better. Under the gun, under quite a bit of pressure, and most importantly, under time constraints. Not bad for a newbie project, honest to goodness. You can tell there's a very, there's startling lack of detail. Nothing is speckled. I'm not showing any real shadows. It's plain on these back sides because, of course, I wanted there to be a building that would attach to this side and a building that would attach to this side. Didn't quite work out that way, but that's okay. People build what they like for the Christmas village. But here is, in the flesh, a product that doesn't exist anymore. You can't, you can go onto Etsy and you can probably buy like maybe the last 6 of these that exist anywhere in the country. There might be a whole bunch of them in somebody's basement. Maybe somebody's aunt ran a craft store at some point in history, but nobody's making any more of those, and no one's bought the rights. In fact, I tried to find out what the heck happened to California Creations. The limited information that I've discovered has pretty much indicated, okay, yeah, somebody who did this out of a labor of love died, and the kids fought over the inheritance, and now there's just nothing but what managed to get out. But here in Staxel, Alone in the World is just one variant of something that doesn't exist anymore. And it gets to be here with us. It gets to be hanging out with us in Staxel, just as lovely as it ever did. And in my mind, I think that this is something that is going to make Staxel probably one of the most powerful post-Minecraft games that are out there, because as difficult as it was to do, I could teach people how to do this. I could teach them how to do this better than I ended up doing. There is distinct hope for this getting better and more fun and more interesting as time goes on. So thank you all for joining me for that. We now have an example of a micro object mod and a macro object mod. And between these two things, I hope to see you all back, and I hope to show you all many more new and interesting mods with Staxel. And thank you very much, and you all have a wonderful day.